Hey guys, Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, 2021.
2021, and welcome back to the Golf Podcast. This is episode number 356. And if you're new to the podcast, one thing I'll tell you is that every year we have such a great time. It's one of my favorite episodes, doing our goals episode. So we like to do these right at the beginning of the year. We wrap up our goals that from last year. We talk about our goals for moving into this year. And it's kind of funny. I think, Mike, it's totally possible that I was the one who jinxed all of 2020 because we just took a quick look at last year's episode, the first episode of 2020, and I was
You were amped. You're like, this is going to be a great year.
This is going to be the year.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It kind of was.
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways it was. I mean, a lot of bad stuff has happened, but in our world, in the golf world, and what we've tried to accomplish both in our game and in the company, Golficity, we've done a lot. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Coming up. So, but hey, man, new year, new goals. Can't wait to look back and see if we've hit last year's.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what yours are going forward.
For sure. And I think this is something, too, again, for anybody who listens regularly, they know we talk about goals often. But something we saw, like with Justin Thomas, maybe it was 2-3 years ago, where he showed his goals before his big season. It's just so important to actually, I know we all have these ideas in our mind of things we want to accomplish with our game, but it just helps so much, we find, to actually put them down in writing and find things that are going to focus. And also the creation of the goals in a way that you get those small goals and those big goals, what we call like our stretch goals.
Yep.
You need those goals that you might not hit, the ones that really push you. And then you need those smaller goals that are more attainable, that almost they serve as a stepping stone to the big goals. Because if you set all lofty goals, often happens is we give up too soon.
Right.
So I think you need some of those small wins. So it's when you do set your goals, it's about being realistic with them, but also having one or two that push you out of your comfort zone, because that's what ultimately makes us better golfers.
Absolutely. And, to that point, looking back on that episode from the beginning of last year, I said, I misquote, but I said something like, I'm not even going to put breaking 80 as a goal because I just want to accomplish these small goals and it will lead me to that goal. And sure enough, 2020 was the year I finally broke 80.
That's awesome.
So, set those small goals.
That is proof right there that the small goals lead to the big goals. So we're going to talk about our goals. We're going to continue to try to talk about some of our suggestions for you guys setting your own goals. And then we're going to talk about some goals overall for Golficity, some things that we want to do. 2020, for as crazy of a year as it was a big year for us. The new office here, the new podcast booth, being able to do things like that, and also talk about pushing you out of your comfort zone. In the beginning of the year, we couldn't even get out there on the golf course,
right?
And we were pushed out of our comfort zone to try to find ways to still create fun and engaging content for you guys week over week. So we did a lot of stuff from home. We did a lot of indoor stuff.
Thankfully, it wasn't too long. I mean, we were shut down, from March 13th, that last Friday, we did the putt out contest in here, to, I think we met at late April. We played golf. Finally, we went back out there. So it was really like 2.5-3 months later. I remember we were so distant then and very scared. The world was still scared, nervous, and things were still shutting down. The markets were crashing and everything. But hey, man, we've moved on. We've gotten a lot of golf in. We've played a lot of great rounds. And we're going to do something fun on this episode, which we're going to look back on some of our favorites. Yes. I got a bunch of different categories, very specific, and then maybe some goals for next year.
Yeah, as golfers, there's no doubt about it. We were fortunate that our sport was one of the few that is distant enough that it opened back up and we were able to get out there. But anyway, so speaking of, this reminds me, I want to give a special shout out topping off this episode. Speaking of COVID, one of a longtime friend and listener of the show, and somebody who's been on the front line battling COVID for this whole year, is Dr. Will Selman. And even as busy as he's been, he has still spent the time to check in with us from time to time. So Will, it's always appreciated. Even one thing that was a big part of my year was starting the year off with these big back issues, big major injuries, and I ended up having to do all types of MRIs and things like that to find out that I've got a herniated disc in my neck. So all through that process, Will was there taking a break from everything he was doing to spend more than an hour on the phone with me, helping me decide who to see and how to see them. So he's been a huge help. And this just came in the mail. I want to show you this, Mike, what he sent us.
This is pretty cool.
So first, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see the Titleist box, and Will's got a great sense of humor. He writes, "Sorry, not a Titleist product inside." Right? So we'll open this thing up. And
an instant heartbreak.
Instant heartbreak. Let's see.
This is great because you called me and you're like, dude.
I called you. I'm like, what is this? This is great.
I'm not expecting anything.
A whole big, long handwritten note from Will. But what I thought was really cool, he's always looking out for us. So what he ended up sending us here, Mike, I'll give you them. He sent us 2 with the bow and everything.
With the bow.
He sent us 2 lefty clubs, one for each of us. So what he said was, again, always looking out for our backs. He said, save your backs and prevent some of the injuries that come from corkscrewing in the same direction over and over again. You might not look like Phil, but you'll get pretty good, and it forces you to reflect on a good technique. So what he's saying is if you can practice left-handed swings at the range every now and then, you'll save your back. So how cool is that?
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. So what do we got here? This is great. We got a TaylorMade piece.
A couple of
767 iron and a Ping i500 with the bow on it. We got to go do it.
Yeah. But I thought that was great.
This is so cool.
Not only that cool, but like, it points it out. It's something I wanted to bring to the attention of the audience because, like, I know a lot of you guys probably play baseball, and I've seen a lot of baseball coaches that have you as part of your practice take cuts in the other direction because it's true. Years and years of swinging in the same way, or as Will says, corkscrewing in the same direction, can cause issues with the back. So I don't know. I think it's going to look really sloppy the first couple of times.
I think so too. But let's try it inside before we bring it outside.
Yeah, let's just not put one through the window over there.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So, Will, big thank you.
Will's been great. I mean, we've been going back and forth all year. I mean, he's, like you said, he's been on the front lines battling COVID. He's a doctor, physician, and he sent us that one photo, still sticks out of my head, of him all masked up in the white outfit, and he had the Golficity G on his lab coat in his doctor. Just to say, because he deems himself as the Golficity physician. He's great.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I have been so fortunate this year that I have not had, knock on wood, any major back spasm incidents. Because when I get those, it takes me out for at least a week or two. I can't swing a club since our trip in January to Florida. But I'll tell you a funny story. Funny only because I'm okay. But I thought the other day, here we go again. I'm having a good back. My back's been in a good place, whatever. I'm driving into work the other day. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing the other direction. I see this car start to come across the line. And now he's coming straight at me. So
never want to see that.
You do not want to see that. I hit the horn. He doesn't flinch, doesn't move in any direction. We're aiming at a head-on collision. As quick as I can, I jerk the wheel to the right to try to avoid him. He catches me in the back quarter panel and spins my car out. Then his car proceeds. Thankfully, there's a lot of snow. Into the snowbank, and people thought he was fleeing the scene because his wheels were going. He was in the snowbank, just spinning.
Jeez.
Now I'm facing the other direction. Luckily, there was tons of witnesses, so everybody stops. They're checking on us. Are you okay? And I was like, I felt good, but I was like, just kind of like
what
a
happened?
Little bit of shock.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Like, because I remember, I went to like dial the cops, and like normally it would be an easy thing, and like I was struggling with it. I'm like, I wasn't Googling it right. I'm like, then I realized it was just the adrenaline pumping, whatever. But to make a long story short, this guy does not remember the accident in any way. He thinks he fell asleep, but who knows? He could have had a medical incident. I don't know. I didn't engage too much with him. The cops were there immediately.
Yeah.
I know the ambulance was there. Anyway, long story short, as the adrenaline starts to go away, my back starts really tensing up because this felt like I got hip checked by
I bet
Martin Brodeur or something like that. Like I got nailed, right? And I'm like, here we go with the back. So I went and got checked out anyway, just to be sure. And the doctor's like, yeah, your back is all tense up. Gave me some muscle relaxers just to hope that I wouldn't go into spasm. And knock on wood, it's been 3 days.
I got to thank you, by the way.
Why?
The way you delivered the news to me. You started off by saying, I'm fine, but here's what happened.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I can't stand the people who say, I was just in an accident. And you're like, okay, what's the next line?
Right.
Thank you.
No, you got it. Because like, you think about it, you're on the other side of that call.
Yeah. You're smart enough to realize that.
You freak out. So I'm like, listen, and same thing. I called into work, and I'm like, listen, guys, I'm fine, but I've been in this accident. I got you. But anyway, long story short, this guy, whatever happened, he fell asleep. He was headed right at me as a head-on collision.
Scary, man.
Scary.
I'm
stuff.
glad you can walk and
Scary
you can kind of swing a little bit. Right?
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, if this guy ruined my golf game.
Yeah. You know what you're gonna be like? You're gonna be like rookie of the year. You're going to now get the ball like 350. Something happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Frank's going on tour now.
Going on tour from
Garden
a
hose.
car accident, right? But but fortunately, like I said, you got to be. And the guy was apologetic. Once you realize what happened, he's apologetic. And I'm like, man, listen, we're both alive. And mistakes happen. God knows. I don't want to put myself in this guy's shoes, but who knows? Maybe he worked the night shift and he was up all night. I don't know what it was.
Right?
But it was a scary situation.
Right, well, you're here, so
yeah, we're here. So all right, so let's do this. I want to do our Twitter tap-in as always, and then from there we'll dive into our goals. We'll recap last year's goals and then go into this year's goals. And we've got some fun and exciting ones in there. And like I said, we'll have a challenge to you guys that we want to hear some of your goals. So start thinking about them because we're going to ask you to post your goals in the comments, or make sure you message them in the Facebook group because we want to hear some of those goals. But first things first, want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist, guys, the TSI drivers. And by the way, we're going to be doing our What's in the Bag. Every year we try to do a What's in the Bag. We love doing that. And a big one that we're both going to end up highlighting is the TSI drivers because they really impressed us. If you didn't get a chance to go back and check out our TSI fitting, it's something, it's worth a watch because it is just incredible how much has gone into the TSI. The Titleist really took what they learned with the success of the TS drivers and was able to use that to really level up the TSI. It really does represent Titleist's peerless pursuit of speed, and they continue to invest in the minds, material, and technologies it takes to push the boundaries of speed while sacrificing nothing when it comes to performance. Like I said, it's built on those breakthrough advances of the TS and the TSI. It's much more than just an extension of the franchise, like I said. And once you hit it, you'll see exactly what I mean. It's an investment in your game. It's going to pay dividends to come. Visit Titleist.com to learn more about TSI drivers. And hey, who knows, guys, that maybe that's one of your goals for this year is to, like I said, invest in your game if it's been a while. There's a lot of great new technology out there, and the TSI should be on the top of your list of drivers to try because it's been well received across the board. I've heard only good things about it, and we have that firsthand experience that's been incredible for us.
It really has. It's a shame we got to tuck it away for a couple months.
I know.
Well, outdoors.
Well, no, we'll be hitting
in here.
We'll be hitting in here. True. That's for sure. All right, so diving into our Twitter tap-in, guys, if you're not already following us on Twitter, make sure you follow us at Golficity so you can be part of the Twitter tap-in every week. And we like to ask all different types of questions about your game and what you do out on the golf course. And this week we asked, what do you do with your cell phone while playing golf? Is it in your hand, your pocket, your locker? I think this is an interesting one because every golfer is a little bit different with this, right? Mm-hmm. Some people want to have it with them. Some people want nothing to do with their cell phone. In fact, that's a big plus for a lot of people who use the shot scope, who you hear us talk about. You don't need to have your cell phone. Everything's contained in the watch. And we'll talk about more of that in a minute. But I thought this was an interesting one because some people rely on it. There's a lot of great apps as well.
There are a lot of great apps
that you can use out there.
Obviously I have it out. Any photo or video you see of me, it's in my back pocket.
Right.
It's always in my back pocket, and that's where I've lost it many times. Yep. We're never going to talk about that again. But I always have it out because I'm either doing stuff on social or I'm taking photos or I'm checking emails and doing all the stuff I shouldn't be doing and focusing on my golf game, but I usually have it on me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have it on me, although I tend to not check it that often. I'll usually just pull it out for one of two reasons. Either to take a video or something to share for social, or I will occasionally use it as my scorecard. Mm-hmm. I think some that do that well are like 18 Birdies app. I'll use that on occasion. There's a few other ones as well that I've experimented with. But sometimes if I don't want to just physically write down the score, I'll just punch it in there.
Right.
But I
mean, even though ShotScope offers these like distances to hazards and things like that, sometimes it's good to have a visual of a hole, and you pull that up and you're able to see a blind shot. Yeah. I remember that sky view. Remember that par 5 that was straight down the hill?
Wild.
Would have never known. Yeah. We didn't have any type of like aerial.
Plus, we have the benefit of flying the drone.
And we flew the
there.
drone on that. Yeah.
But ShotScope. Like I said, I found it to be very accurate at the end of my round when I go to sync the round, and I can see that it's logged my shots. But when you're out there, ShotScope doesn't have the cumulative score on the watch. So I do like something where I'm just physically writing it down and I know where I'm at, and not having to rely on my memory. So I'll use something like that for it as well. And then. Let's see here. And then we got a lot of very similar responses. So Matt Savage says, I walk, so it's always in my back pocket. Uses it for inputting his scores. And so does Roger K. He says it's in the cart. but then he has it in his hand for the GPS app and the 18 Birdies app. So like I said, while a lot of times people think of it as a distraction, it has become a benefit for golfers too, because there are a lot of great apps you can use while you're out there.
Right. I mean, this guy, Eric's GPS watch, I'm seeing a lot of the similar GPS. Casey Loves Golf is the dash pockets or the cart, playing music. You're going to see that a lot, playing music, or I'll pull it out to take pictures and videos. A lot of people have their phones out for music. You hear a lot more music on the course. I think it's pretty cool. People listening to a little music. It's not really that distracting. And then I think a lot of people take it out for pictures and videos, because there's just so many picturesque things on a golf course. Plus someone wants to take a video of their swing. So I got to feel like it's always out for a majority of the people. No one's just going to tuck it.
Yeah, I think unless the course rules. I mean, because we've played at private courses where you can't
unless
have
you're like at Pine Valley where you can't even bring it in or something.
Right.
But
here's one I hadn't seen before. Brad Underwood, he says, use mine as a scope. Don't have the big money to have a good one. So that's interesting. I wonder if what he means by that is he's using the zoom function to zoom in and see the flag.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it does sound like it.
So he's just like 5Xing or 6Xing his iPhone zoom. Go for it.
A lot of people
but the
say
phone
they
costs
like
3 times more than the GPS. But
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
If I'm walking into my back pocket, riding, it's in the cart. That's from JB. Brady says, in the cart, it gets in the way of my swing if it's in my pocket, or at least it feels like it.
Yep.
Yeah. Clearly, it doesn't distract you, but it could distract others. Other people. But it sounds like everyone's got it somewhat close. It's either in the cart, or in their pocket. And a couple people mentioned in their bag. Scott Walker says just tosses it in his bag.
There you go. Okay.
But one thing I'm seeing is the 18 Birdies app coming up quite a bit. And here's a good one. Jamie Miller says, I have it in my back pocket to track my steps. Plus, I like to have it handy when he takes photos. And he shared a couple of great photos he took out on the golf course. But that's true, too. A lot of people will use it kind of as a fitness tracker.
That's true.
And then you have it in there.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, here's somebody who does get away from it. Hunter Browning says, after purchasing the shot scope, the phone stays in the car. No need for it on the course.
Wow.
So, I mean, look, that's, like I said, that's one of the big benefits.
Staying in the car is aggressive.
It is, but
I don't even leave it in the car when I go in a store. I mean, I feel like you need this thing with you.
I know, but in a way, I kind of envy Hunter.
I envy it.
That he can break
could do it
free.
God bless Hunter. I
wonder how much better we would play if we did put the distractions away.
Interesting.
I think you could, if on the level of people who are most distracted on the golf course, we're way up there, because not only is it that we're juggling at least 3 cameras and a drone.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit wild and distracting, but we have fun doing it. Like I said, it's not a burden to us because we actually enjoy filming.
We'll never see the day where we put everything away. We're never going to play a leisure.
But it is an interesting, that is a real, let's say a 4-hour just break from the distractions.
Would be so nice.
Would be something else.
Maybe we got to treat ourselves to that in 2021.
We may have to try that. But anyway, thank you everybody who weighed in on that. There's a lot of good responses. And it is interesting just to see. Like I said, as golfers, we're all different. Some of us, it's a distraction. For others of us, it's a tool that we use while we're out there. But no matter what, the reality is it's part of our lives.
Yeah.
Cell phones are just part of our lives now.
Part of our lives. So people need to
golfers,
get in touch. Yeah.
And look, we even see it on the PGA Tour. Obviously, they can't have them, but they have them right in their bag.
Yeah.
And how many times have we been at PGA Tour events? The first thing that the tour players do after they walk off the 18th green is go into the bag, get their cell phone out, and whatever it may be.
15,000 messages.
Right, exactly. So it's no matter what, we all live with it in some way or another. So it was cool that everybody was able to weigh in with a little bit of that information. So let's do this. Let's do a word from our sponsors, Mike. Speaking of ShotScope, we got a ShotScope sponsor this episode, and then we'll dive into our goals.
Yeah, man, about to have some fun with this one. So, guys, big thanks to ShotScope, the all-in-one GPS stat tracking watch, and guys, the whole the way we could do this episode is to have these stats available to us to plan. To prepare, these stats looking back, looking forward, to see our greens and regulations and things like fairways hit. I mean, I dove into it deep last night, just again, refreshing my memory of how many stats are available on this thing. And guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the ShotScope, it is a watch. It goes on your wrist. It's small. It's like the size of an iPhone. They changed it this year, back in July of 2020, with a new version, the V3, which we've been using all year and love it. Smaller band, color display, really, really new upgrades. They have longer battery life. It's almost double what it was.
It's been a smash hit, which is why it's been sold
and it's been
out
sold
all
out.
year.
So, hopefully when you're hearing this, it might still be sold out. But guys, if you just want to get a great watch for GPS this golf season and you don't want to wait for stats, you're not into stats, get the G3. That's just GPS only. It's about $170. It's not going to break the bank too much. Visit shotscope.com to order yourself, arguably, I think, the best GPS watch in the game. Mm-hmm. It really is. And there's no subscription fees, guys. There's nothing you have to worry about monthly. You buy it once, you go for it. But if you're into stats or you want to get into it, you're going to like it. Yeah. I got a feeling. Give it a shot. Lastly, just want to thank FootJoy. Frank, I got a huge FootJoy box over there with a bunch of new threads that we're going to tear into today. But FootJoy, guys, the #1 outerwear brand in golf, always committed to helping us extend the golf season as long as possible by providing the best gear to make every day playable. The new Hydro Series line of rain jackets includes several options that provide the ultimate protection wherever you're teeing it up. So, new to the FootJoy performance is this Hydro Tour rain jacket. Wore it here today. Love it. It's cold out there. This thing withstands the wind. Like, it just kind of knocks right off it. But the best thing about this, and I've been talking about this a lot, this is a jacket that just kind of fits to you. And when you swing a golf club, you don't even know you have it on. I mean, no one likes to wear a jacket when they play golf, but with this one, you can, and you can get away with it. And it keeps you warm and waterproof. Love it. So play more golf this year. Get the gear you need to play in any condition. Visit footjoy.com/MEDP.
All right, so we're going to dive into these goals. And like I said, as we do, I encourage you guys to start thinking of some of your goals. And if you had some goals for 2020, also let us know how'd that pan out for you. But start to think of it because it is so important to set these goals. And as we were saying, we really lean on ShotScope because it makes our lives so much easier. As you'll hear, a lot of these goals, it's important to be able to quantify them. Not every goal can be quantified, but if it's something you can quantify, it's much easier when you've got a device that is keeping those statistics for you. However, like I said, I don't want to limit this to people who just have ShotScope. It can be done. You can be done the old-fashioned method with a pen and paper and just jotting it down when you're out there, talking about distractions. I believe that's a distraction, so I like having the ShotScope with me and having it do it in the background. Plus, the stats are a little deeper. ShotScope even now will let you select your different lie. Like if you wanted to look at your approaches, your approach percentage from the rough, from
right.
the fairway, all those type of things that would be very difficult to jot down while you're out there. So it is something that, like I said, it does help us quite a bit, and you'll see that as we kind of run through. One thing, like I said, a couple notes. First, as you set those goals, like we talked about earlier, set those attainable goals and set those stretch goals. We'll talk about those more in a second. And for me this year, one thing you're going to see is I put a heavy focus on putting. And part of those goals is enacting some sort of plan to help you reach those goals. So what we did, and me personally, and you worked with these coaches on some other things as well, but I worked with Matt Wilson at Baltusrol, Brad Worthington at Pound Ridge, and we've done also all these things. I work with my putting, and we've also done a number of putting episodes this year on the podcast. In fact, the last, I think, 2 episodes.
I think that dominated the pods this year.
Yeah,
last year was
we're about putting.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is because, like I said, if you're new to the show, we are not professional golfers. We're not professional instructors. We are guys who just like learning this game. And as we're learning it, we're talking about it here. So obviously the topics that we're learning the most about is what we're going to be discussing the most. So we put a heavy focus on putting this year. I think putting is one of those key holders to really unlocking a better score. And I've seen that. I've scored a little bit better this year, and we'll dive into it in a second. So let me run through a couple of my goals, and then we'll run through yours.
Sure.
And then we'll run through our 2020 goals first, and then we'll talk about 2021.
Perfect.
So the first goal that I had set for myself was I wanted a 35% green in regulation. Green in regulation for the year. So going back, I had 23% in 2018, 27% in 2019, and I ended up with 33% in 2020. So while I didn't reach my goal, I think the more important thing to look at here is that trend. I was 2% short, but I jumped up 6% better greens in regulation over the year before. So I think that's evidence right there that by setting a goal and putting a focus on it, the effect was what I wanted. I wanted more greens in regulation. I don't think the way to look at this is to say I failed, because I think that puts a bad spin on it. The reality is I didn't hit my goal, but I got to look at it and say, the effect. There's the ends and the means. The means is I'm moving in the right direction. So that was an important one, and that's something, like I said, looking at the shot scope, I can see that it was 33% greens in regulation. Another one here was less than 10% three putts I wanted. Okay, because three putts, if you want to see what's going to hurt in your score, if you're three putting, that's a big one. And in 2019, I was at 14%. But in 2020, let's see here. In 2020, I went down to 7%. So I hit my goal. So I got below 10% in three putts. So that was an important one. And I think a big part of that can be attributed to exactly what I was saying. That's where I had put so much of my focus, so much of that work we did. Brad Worthington taught us an incredible drill, which was so simple. And we talked about some of these in our putting episodes previously, but he talked about just taking a tee and setting it 1 foot behind the hole and practice putting and making sure that all of your putts finish either in the hole or before that tee. So you're not leaving them too short. It was a great pace control, strategy, a practice strategy, because pace control is a big thing that leads to three putts. So if you end up blowing them by too far, now that second putt is a knee knocker. So by working on my pace control with simple drills that, cost no more than a tee, putting a tee in the ground, you'd be surprised at how much over time. And there's also being realistic, that knowing that these things don't change overnight. Brad was like, okay, now practice that for, a couple seasons and you'll be surprised at how great a putter you are down the road.
Yep.
But he's not saying like it's just going to happen.
Right.
But I did see an improvement, but it was not like a dramatic improvement. I ended up with about 7% less three putts. So that's important. Another one I said a lot of putting goals. I said another goal of mine was to have less than 30 putts per round average. So in 2019, I had 32.6 putts per round according to ShotScope. In 2020, I had 31.5 average. So close, but not quite my goal. So my goal was less than 30. I got to 31.5. But again, what am I looking at? The trends.
Yes.
The trends are in the right direction. It also kind of helps because all that work that you're putting in your practice sessions are in a lot of ways like they're verified. You're more motivated by when you see, okay, it's happening. Right. Because as golfers, we ebb and flow. We go through slumps, and a lot of times where we quit on things is because we're out there and we're like, oh, I've been working on my putting and I putt terrible today, right? And you have this idea that you're just going to throw it out the window. Well, the reality is you're looking too zoomed in. Zoom out. And this is why we don't do our goals over a month. We do it over the year. And we'll go back and we'll look back, and that's when we'll say, look, though, I may have had one or two bad rounds here and there, but my average is still going in the right direction. So again, it reinforces that the work is working.
It's working, man.
It's working.
That's good. You need that.
You do. You do.
Keeps you going, man.
So here's my last goal from last year, and then we'll go through your goals, and then we'll talk about next year's goals. This was my stretch goal. My stretch goal, it was a kind of a long shot, and I said I wanted to get to a single-digit handicap. Now, I ended the year 2019 at 11.3 handicap. Now, one thing I will say, this one is I'm on the fence with how I feel about this, because the reality is in 2020, I did not enter many scores for handicap. A lot of the rounds that you saw us out there playing were not ones that I would want to enter. They were a lot of those rounds were challenges, stealing clubs. Obviously, you're not going to be entering where you're stealing clubs or best ball or worst ball. You see us out there filming these challenges, which are not rounds that you can just, you're playing for your handicap to enter. I truly believe that if you're going to enter a round for your handicap, that should be a round where you play by the rules all the way through. No mulligans, no gimmies, nothing like that. Enter it. So I only entered a handful, and unfortunately, it didn't move my handicap much at all. I ended up with an 11.6 as of the end of 2020. So not much movement.
We didn't get to
there.
that singles, but again, like you said, it's going to be hard. With
And even in a crazy year, the handicap remained about the same. So again, it's something that I will continue to push for, but I think as I do these small goals, just like you said, your small goals led to you breaking 80 for the first time.
Right.
I think if I keep focusing on these small goals, it'll just happen where that handicap will eventually jump into that coveted single digit, zone.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we are single-digit handicappers.
Yeah.
I think we're high nines, maybe even low tens. Again, we're just like you said, we're out there doing so much. Our mental game is completely out the window.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it does make it harder.
I mean, you go out there with no equipment. I know we keep talking about it. You go out there, you're going to fire a beautiful round. You're going to be in the zone. I just have a feeling we're much better golfers without the cameras.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But we'll never try because we love to record it.
No one will ever know if we don't record it.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
All right, let's talk about your goals.
Okay, so I wanted to put a heavy focus on trying to shallow out my swing in 2020, not being so steep or trying to hit up on the drives, trying to get more distance that way. And, also putting a little focus on scoring better, hitting more greens. Now, I've worked with Matt Wilson, like you said, Kevin Sprecher. We were talking about, hitting up on. I've talked to him countless times about it, and I'll get to the numbers in a second. But that was one of my main goals for my swing, and I don't know if I've even really conquered it yet. I think I'm still working through it. I'm still struggling with it. It just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel natural to do in here because I feel like I can't get a full swing in here. I don't know if it's just an excuse, but it's just something I want to work on this off season. Is just take what I learned from him, from all those guys, put it all together, and make that my big thing. So that was my goal last year, but it's going to be my goal again this year.
Gotcha.
All right. So as far as the numbers go, it's funny. I'm listening back to the episode. I want to have 39% greens in regulation.
That was your goal last year,
and you were like, "Oh, it's pretty particular." I said, "Well, it's I wanted to have a certain number. I forget what it was. It was 5 or 6 per round. It equaled 39%." Okay, yeah. Now, I had 22% in 2019, so it's weird. I actually went down. I was at 20%. So, again, I don't want to make it look like I failed, like you said, but I want to say, this offseason, along with the other goal, I think it's like a two-part thing. Somehow work on a strategy with a coach or whatever, how to hit more greens in regulation.
Well, you know what? I remember that was your focus because the multiple coaches we work with this year, I remember you explicitly saying, my trouble is hitting the green on my approach shots.
Yes.
And what's so funny is, like we talked about here, your short game is so darn good because you miss the green.
Is that why I'm just like, I'll just get it up there? I don't know.
I mean, it's a great thing to know you can rely on your short game to get you close. Because when you miss those greens, man, you end up chipping it close.
Chip it close and one or two putt and move out.
But you're so aware of it because I remember you said it with Brad Worthington and be like, this is my range that I think we had a drive and you're maybe a 6 iron or 7 iron out and be like, this is my range, Brad. I missed the green.
Yeah.
But he worked with you. I think whatever that is that focus, man, you focus on that, you're going to unlock that.
I think quickly. So. I think so. So that's going to be one of my focuses. But here's the cool thing. My fairways went up big time. Fairways and regulations. 40%. I think that's really good to have 40%, greens hit. My goal next year is to have 50%.
40% fairways hit.
Fairways hit per round.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So let's think about this. So not including par threes, there's about 15 fairways in a round. So I hit about 6 to 7 per round. That means next year I want to hit, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty attainable.
And I think that will lead to more greens in regulation.
Yeah, I actually got a medal. One of my medals, my shot scope medal, was 9 fairways in regulation in one round this year at Roycebrook. And I played damn well.
Yeah.
So there you go. It leads to that. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was putting.
Yep.
Like you, looking at my shot scope stats, I didn't really put a big emphasis on putting this year. I didn't practice it that much. I didn't do much, but my putting was actually pretty good this year. I was actually pretty happy with it. In 2019, I had 12% 3 putts, and then in 2020, last year, I went to 9%. So I improved, and then I had look at this. I went from 28% 1 putts to 30%.
Wow.
So 30% of my putts were 1 putts. I thought that was really great. So putting for me feels good. And proximity, this is pretty cool. This went from 21 feet down to 16 feet. So I'm getting them tighter to the hole.
Well, there goes your 3 putts.
There goes your 3 putts. So guys, how cool are these stats to have at your fingertips? So that was it for me as far as numbers. Then in that episode, I said I wanted a clearer mind as I addressed the ball. I failed.
What do you think what would you attribute to failing there?
I never accomplished this because I didn't have a really good, consistent pre-shot routine. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's like, all right, Mike, maybe develop that, or maybe I need to do something new. Maybe design a new pre-shot routine, or just try to be consistent with the pre-shot routine I have, because I think that will give me a clearer mind off the ball. I talked to Greg Angelillo. You've seen him in a bunch of videos with us. He talked about it, how he's the ability to tell the stories on the course when he's with us, and then when he stands over the ball, it all goes out the window and he's just focused.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
A lot of guys will just use part of their pre-shot routine as a trigger to just focus in. But I would ask you then, when you say your mind's not clear,
it's not.
What is it cluttered with? Is it swing thoughts? Is it concern of like the numbers of like, I have to do this here to shoot this score? Or is it something totally, are you cluttered with outside things?
Outside stuff. I want to be able to just stand over a ball and just be like, all right, nice and smooth, front pin, got room in the back, smooth swing, and go.
Okay, so you're saying you're not, because a lot of golfers are cluttered with swing thoughts, and that ties them up mentally in knots.
I want to have a game plan, visualize
stuff.
it. Yes, and I'm just instead I'm over the ball like maybe adrenaline's up a little bit. The other guy's behind me on the tee. Is the camera set up? Let's go. Right. And like now your heart's racing a little bit more. Maybe you're out of it a little bit. I got to find a clear mind out there. I don't know.
I think one of those keys is exactly that. People find one swing thought. And then just
maybe that's it.
Just
need like a swing thought.
Focus.
It's like Happy Gilmore. Go to your happy place. It's a funny thing, but like that's it. Go to your happy place.
I want to see Mike's happy place.
You don't want to see my happy place?
No. Happy Gilmore's happy place. I can imagine what Mike's must be.
Oh my god.
It's just raining divots.
Yep. But that's that. And then 3 birdies in a round. I mentioned on the pod. I failed. I had 2 birdies in a round at Mansion Ridge back in June, and I've had so many opportunities for 3. I've had many birdie putts in a round. I just didn't knock that down. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to mention these leaderboard stats, which I'm proud of. I'm 58th on the Golficity leaderboard out of I believe it was like 400 and something.
The leaderboard grew a lot this year.
Yeah, I had 5,725 points. I'm 58th there out of 450 people and 31.5 average in 2020. What is this thing? Oh, 237th out of almost 500 on what was that stat? I didn't even write that stat down, so ignore that one.
Yeah, there's so many. And if you're not already on the Golficity leaderboard, if you got the shot scope, make sure you join it. The code is GICITY. And again, we worked that in a little bit last year, talking about where we were with those, because I know I wanted to improve and move up the leaderboard in certain places. I think that little bit of friendly competition that the leaderboard gives is another one of those drivers that drives us to play better.
All right, so looking forward. And again, I tried to change, instead of just doing the same goals and then just increasing the numbers a little bit, I tried to change them around in my thought process a little bit. So for one goal that I said, you talk about medals, right? I think the shot scope medals are a great thing that can serve as cherry picking certain goals, because a medal can be a goal. And one that I looked at, again, I know that greens and regulation are one of the biggest drivers that show whether you score well or not. Yes.
So I want to keep hammering away on greens and regulation. But I thought, instead of just setting a number for the whole season and then just having it kind of this lofty, bigger goal for the year, again, focusing on smaller goals, I said, I'm going to go after the 8 greens and regulation in 1 round medal on ShotScope.
Wow.
I think last year my best was maybe 6 or 7. I haven't hit 8. But I thought, if I can go in with the focus of just trying to get 8 greens in regulation, it's going to automatically get me to the point where I'm getting more greens in regulation, because that is where I'm putting my attention and my focus. But I want to see, like I said, my average green in regulation in 2020 was 33%. In order to get 8 greens in regulation on an 18-hole round, that would be 44%. So it's not so out of reach. It could happen. But I think, like I said, if I go in, and so many times we go in, like our only game plan for a round is to shoot a certain number. Yep. And I think that's where we fall short. Instead, if I go in, like my game plan today is to try to unlock the 8 greens in regulation medal, then I'm focused on that, and the score will fall into place.
Because get the ball on the green.
Right. I'll do the things that I need to do to try to get that ball on the green.
Take a peek over here at this medal as you're talking.
11? You had 11 greens in regulation somewhere?
But what did it lead to? My one and only break 80 round.
There you go.
That was my 79 this year. My one and only time I broke 80. I was like 11 greens in regulation. Where was that? Sure enough, Apple greens. Yeah.
That is it. And then if you can put these pieces together, like I talk about putting. I mean, you want the recipe for scoring. Hit your greens and putt. That's it. You know what I mean? Now I know that's an oversimplification, but what I mean is sometimes we need that. We need that simplification of saying, what do I focus on? What do I go after? So I'm going to say, I'm going to go after that 8 greens in regulation medal. So maybe your medal, maybe you're a little bit better golfer than I am. Maybe your medal is 10. Maybe that's what you're going after. Or maybe you're newer to the game and yours is 3. Start somewhere and just try. And then once you do it, it's like we talk about with the guys at Game Like Training, that gamification. It's like when we used to play Mario Brothers as a kid, the whole thing wasn't one level. You had to beat different levels and unlock the next level. And that's what kept us in it. That's what kept our motivation. That's what kept our attention. Same thing with this. Set that level up. You know what I mean?
You know what I love about these medals too? Did you know we played a U.S. Women's Open course this year?
Where did we play?
If you had to take a guess, where do you think?
The U.S. Women's. I remember when we were played down in Atlantic City, because I remember they had.
You're not going to get this. Mazzellum Springs.
They played they had the U.S. Women's Open.
I don't know when. Does it say when on the? It doesn't say when. Just so you played a U.S.
That was some course.
Oh, some course.
We'll probably be back there at some point.
Yep.
Another one that I had, again, trying to focus more granularly this year. I want to have at least one round with no 3 putts. So while I'm working on bringing my 3 putts down across the board, again, I'm going to focus more specifically. Be like, I'm going to go into this round with saying, I just want to avoid the 3 putt. So I'll be obviously more focused on things like proximity and stuff like that. But focusing on that goal will bring down my putts per round overall. So that's important. One that's a little bit less quantifiable. I mean, there's still plenty of stats that we can use to put a number on this, but I got to work on my short game, especially chipping. I think a big part of this was brought to light for me when we were out at that Connecticut Golf Academy, and you just saw these young kids who are up and comers. I mean, these are kids who are aspirations to play on tour someday, and the amount of time of you took their whole day as like a pie chart. You know, the biggest slice of that pie is going to be working on short game. They were just out there, and they were deadly with their short game. And even just watching, this weekend I was watching Tiger and Charlie, with playing with his son. And obviously the kid's incredible right off the bat, but you can see what he's learning from his dad is learning the short game early. And he pulled off some short game shots as an 11-year-old kid that I can't pull off my wildest dreams. I saw him hit a greenside bunker shot, and he managed to put so much spin on it, it dropped dead. And I'm like, how did he do that? But I just know that's important, and especially, like I said, chipping. And the good news about this is it's something I can work on at home. I'm going to work on it a lot more. So I looked at it. My 2020 average proximity to the hole was 12 feet. I'm going to see if I can beat that. That will be one thing that'll help me quantify that.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. And then my last one is going to be, again, a little bit more of just like, I'm thinking of it more as like a motto, like for the year than even a goal, but that's just keeping the ball in play. Again, looking at when you get into that being like what we call a smart golfer, right? And just saying like what leads to better score. Smart, good golfers just keep the ball in play. Newer golfers, a lot of times they're just hacking away at it as hard. They're trying to move the ball as far as they can at all times. And a lot of times it leads to an errant shot. Ball in the lake, ball OB. Yep. Those are the quickest things that add that score, like go right through the roof. So I'm going to try a little bit harder. It's going to be harder to track this one as from a stat standpoint, but things like small goals, like play a whole round with the same ball, just try to lose less balls, things like that, losing them to OB, losing them to the whatever, the fescue, just by keeping that ball in play. It's just, I think about it all the time. I think about even when you think about a 400-yard hole, I mean, that's like four 100-yard shots. Everybody can hit a 100-yard shot. You know what I mean? But get ourselves in trouble by chasing the ball back and forth all the way around it. So even if I have to dial it down in certain spots and play a shot that I'm a little bit more, understanding of, a little bit more comfortable with, whatever it takes, keeping the ball in play is what I'm going to really work on this year.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your 2021 goals.
All right, so I kind of highlighted a little bit of them. I kind of gave you the answer when I was talking about last year's goals. So just to recap, first, I want to talk about getting back into shape. I mean, 2020 was kind of a derailment. I went from getting in my car and driving to work every day to just staying in my pajamas and working in my home office, which is great. I mean, it's been great as far as convenience, but, it does force you to just eat more at home, be less healthy. The gym is closed now. I've got nowhere to work out. So I've taken some steps this year to improve my health and my, getting back into shape with some more equipment, bringing some new equipment into the house and doing some things there. So that's one of my big goals. I think, just as far as those numbers, greens and regulations, I want to just throw these out there because I want to be able to look back on them next year. Let's go 30% greens and fairways at 50%. Like I said, try to knock down 3 putts to 7%.
And where are you at now with greens regulation?
20.
20. So you got to get 10 more percent.
That's going to be my biggest focus because, again, I showed you those 11 that I had in that round. I broke 80. I also had the medal for 5 consecutive greens and regulations consecutive hit in that same round.
5.
I was lights out that round because I was hitting my greens, man. You know, I had a lot of 2 putts that day. I wasn't draining a lot of 1 putts, but I was just making par and moving on. It teaches
you you're capable of it.
Capable of it, man.
You can do it. It's just a matter of doing it every time.
Yeah, for sure. So greens in regulation, guys, when you hear us next year this time, I'm going to be talking about that a lot, and hopefully that does grow because I think if that grows, there's going to be a lot more 70s on the scorecard.
Yeah.
What else? I want to play a U.S. Open course and get a medal. That's a 2021 goal, whether it's Pinehurst 2, whether it's Kiowa, whether it's wherever else we end up.
Yeah.
God willing. That's it. And then the last thing for me, just to kind of button it all up, is just more friendly rounds. We had fun every time we're out there with, like, you know, Greg or Kevin or Pete, like some of those guys. And, you know, those are the rounds where you walk off and, like, you don't even care what happened out there.
Right.
You're home like that was just a cool. It was like, because, you know, especially now this year, we're not being able to hang out and see people that, you know, that we miss. You know, golf is the only way we can do it.
Right.
So, you know, some of those rounds taught us that this year, like, I miss this. And hopefully we can get back to hanging out indoors and being with people this year. But, you know, more friendly rounds is on my list.
Yeah. And we always say here, we were all about trying to get better and improving. But for me, score, if you put it on the hierarchy of what's important to me in golf, it's not in that top spot. You know, at the end of the day, I always say I far more remember the experience of being there, playing a course, who I was with, the memories that were made out there, than I remember the score. And a great example is that round we played with Pete at Manhattan Woods.
Right.
It was a bucket list course we've always wanted to play. Pete became a member and immediately was gracious enough to invite us out. Again, this year, not getting to see everybody face to face. I mean, I think we're all a little bit tired of these Zoom hangout, whatever we call them, you know, like happy hours. At this point, you just want to see your friends and just being able to be out there on the golf course. It's safe, it's outdoors, it's distant, but just interact and I remember that day. You know, I remember the fun we had with this, having some sandwiches at the turn.
Yeah, like I said, there was new one-liner jokes that we'll never forget.
Exactly.
You know, like new things happen. So
that, I mean, to me, that's what really sets golf apart. It's such a community experience, and there's so many ways to enjoy it beyond the score.
100%.
There's just so many ways. So I see you created a new segment for us here. Take us through this before we wrap it up today.
I call it This Year, Next Year.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk about some of the, you know, most fun, coolest, hardest, toughest, whatever from last year, and talk about a couple things that we hope to achieve this year. Kind of rapid fire. So let's talk about it. We kind of just hit it. Most fun round of the year. And you guys are probably going to see this video in a week or so. We just talked about it when we played around with our buddy Pete, chiropractor, over at Manhattan Woods. I think that was my favorite round of the year. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video as much as we enjoy playing with Pete, because Pete is a character. He's one of the most genuine, down-to-earth guys ever, but man, he'll make you laugh. And he's a genius in his craft.
He is.
I know he's helped you tremendously.
Tremendously. I ended up going to him with my back. And like I said, I spoke with Will, but Will's across the country. So locally, I've worked with Pete on my back for a long time. He set me up with an incredible physical therapist.
He's TPI certified, Pete.
He is TPI certified. He's really hands-on. He's really the only guy I trust with my back. But he's been a great friend for many, many, many years. In fact, it's funny. Before we even started Golficity, I remember we used to go out on the weekends and play all the munis with Pete. You know, he would be our third, and it would just. But that was
he was the reason why I think we started turning cameras on. We're like, I think the world needs to see comedy like this on the golf course.
Exactly.
So check that video out when it comes out. But yes, you can agree that was your most fun round.
Yeah.
Toughest test of golf this year, I think for me, Ramsey Country Club or Ramsey Golf and Country Club, because of all the variables thrown our way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard enough course as it is. It's a 5,500 par 69. That's super tight. I mean, there's like 3 fairways in the length of like what a normal fairway would be.
Yeah.
It's that tight, and we had pouring rain, you had trains, and you had shared fairways, and it was just, I think for me, the toughest.
That was a wild round. And that video you guys can check out. It poured. To the point where it was hard to hold on to the golf
clubs were slipping, but it was just that.
That was a big one. But another one, sneaky tough, Sunset Valley, especially those closing holes. Do you remember it said in the book? I remember this too. It was, I think it was the 16th hole, and it said it was like, this hole's the easiest hole in the golf course. It's a brief reprise from what's about to come.
I think it was like the 15th, because I think it was like a stretch of holes. Right? It was like the last three.
Like yeah. But the whole thing was murder. And we went into that. We played best ball there.
Yeah.
And we still struggled.
We struggled on best ball.
That was that was a course you couldn't get above the hole. Remember, you had to be below the hole. And we didn't know. Like, it kind of took us by surprise. It wasn't a course that locally has a big rep for being like the big challenge.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like a Bethpage Black. Like, you know you're in trouble. No warning sign on your way in. And it snuck up on us, and that was a tough hole.
By the way, everyone wants us to try worst ball at Bethpage.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in for a nightmare.
The caddies would kill us.
Yeah.
So, all right, next one, best shot of the year. I mean, this is hard to remember. I mean, I don't know how many shots we've had this year. I tried to go through ShotScope, and I was like, let me just start with distance. I mean, did I boom any? I had a 336-yard drive on the ShotScope dashboard.
That's a boom.
And that was a boom. I mean, I don't know if it was downhill or not, but hey, man, that number was staring me in the face. And I don't remember where it was from. I'm trying to figure out where it was.
If you go into your ShotScope dashboard, you should be able to click the shot.
All right, I'll click that. And I also remembered, like, I've had a handful of long putts this year. Yeah. Like, I feel like every year I've got the one like at Ely. Like, there's always just one. Yeah. But I felt like the flat stick was hot for
every year you get a couple of bombs from downtown, both with the putter and the driver.
Right.
While you look that up, I'll tell you that for me, this was a tough question. When I saw you put this question, I'm like, what am I going to say here? I had a couple notables. One was my tee shot on 17 at Hamilton Farm, which I just, you know, when you have a plan and it executes exactly the way you want, that just makes you feel good. Because sometimes we hit a great shot, but we weren't necessarily planning it. Like, we may be aiming for the center of the green, and we end up close to the pin, you know, whatever. In this case, the plan just worked. A nice high fade towards that, and I ended up, I think, 4 feet, putted in for birdie. And then similarly, Mazellum Springs, the third hole, another par 3, hit a great tee shot. We all thought from the elevated tee was hard to see. We thought it was rolling towards the hole. We caught it on the drone. It was a great shot, another 5 feet from the hole. But if I had to say my number one best shot, it was actually something that would normally look unremarkable, but it's because of what it taught me. And that was that low spinning wedge shot I hit at Pound Ridge with Brad Worthington, where we were doing a playing lesson, and I had about a 70-yard shot, and he was teaching me that day how to hit a shot I've always wanted to hit, which was that slow spinning wedge, because I've always relied on getting my wedges way up in the air to stop them. I never had enough spin, and he was teaching me contact, and we talked about with the impact, bag, the smash bag, and I just surprised myself. Like, it was just one of those ones. It was coming out low towards the green, and I'm like clenching my teeth because I'm thinking it's going to hit the screen and skip off the back. It hit and one hopped and stopped. Yeah, and I'm like, wow. And just knowing now I can play that shot, that made it the best shot for me, because now I'm trying to play that shot all the time. Yeah,
I found that drive.
You found
Take
it.
a guess where it was. Apple Greens.
Oh, yeah. On
79.
your best round of the,
So it goes to show you everything was clicking that day. But how did I finish? That was a par 5. I ended up hitting 192 yards, 6-iron over the green, 11-yard chip shot on 2-putt for par.
Crazy.
So everything was working that
See,
day.
I told you, all you got to do is you got to click the shot in ShotScope. It takes you right there.
Yeah, it's perfect. We did best shot of the year. Okay, best video of the year. I kind of had a lot of fun with aggressive versus conservative. You know,
Dawn Patrol.
I mean, we were literally up at like 4:45. We got to the course in the 5 o'clock hour. Ballyowen was kind enough to let us go out on the 17th hole before the first tee time went out. I think we had like 2.5 hours of the course to ourselves, or that hole to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we did a 6-shot or 6 attempt. 3 going aggressive on a par 5 and 3 doing a layup conservative on a par 5. Fun video. Learned a lot. I think that's one of my favorites.
And what we learned in that video, I still apply to my game today.
Go for it.
Yep. There's so many other spots on those par 5s and stuff. I'll pull out that 3-wood instead of trying to lay it up and leave myself a wedge.
Yeah.
And it just worked well.
Right.
For me, I think the most fun was our FPV.
And I don't know how I forgot about this. I was trying to think about this. Yeah,
we were laughing the whole time. We had such a great time out there. That was a big thanks to Hollowbrook for letting us to use their facility for something like that. I think between that and the video we did the skills challenge.
Yeah, that was fun too.
I just like those spots where we can do something different and bring our creativity and have fun out there. And the FPV drone.
I want to do more of that this year, some of those challenges. I think those were fun. And just as a bonus, I'll throw in the Hydro Tour water bucket video.
That was fun to film.
That was fun.
But that day, I mean, just like all of us getting out there and just geeking out about having fun with both golf and this technology, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Favorite course of the year? Why don't you go first here?
My favorite course was Arcola.
Yeah, it was your first time?
My first time getting to play it. I thought I loved the whole vibe there. It was just from the members to the caddies, it was just terrific. It was a course I've always wanted to play because when I used to live around the corner from there, it was in my backyard, never got a chance to play it. And I just loved the challenge of those lightning fast greens.
Super fast, 14s.
Yeah. I like that course.
Yeah, for me it was Hamilton Farm because it's something I've heard about, never played it. It was on my New Jersey bucket list or tri-state area bucket list. And we finally got out there. And what I liked about it is just, I love that. It was like that rustic, like that farm life, having some of those farm equipment, the barns,
yep.
I love wide open fairways. That was like the big thing for me.
Yeah.
And, everything was just pristine and beautiful shape. The clubhouse was nice. I mean, the whole experience was beautiful. I got a chance to walk through the clubhouse, which was huge, and the pro shop, and to see everything. I put it up there as probably my favorite.
No, that was truly a beautiful place. Yep. It was just great getting the photos and the drone work from there. We were very fortunate on that one.
Very fortunate. All right, Frank, best new piece of equipment this year. I thought this was a hard one because we've made a lot of changes.
Yeah.
SMA8s, TSIs, in the V3, So, it's hard for me to pick. They're all so great. They've all been kind of game-changing. The wedge game has been great this year. Love the SMA8s. The TSI driver, I'm hitting it further. Dispersion, it's tighter. And the V3, it's like light. It's night and day compared to the V2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to put them all together. I mean, all of those equipment upgrades, it's hard for me to pick.
Me too.
But, I guess if you had to pick one, what would...
If I had to pick one... I'd say it's the TSI 2. I hit more fairways this year than I ever have before.
Yeah, that's been a game changer.
And it was also the first time I can remember in many, many years driving the green on a par 4, which we did at what do you call it? Just the video we just did where we did best ball at.
Where was that?
Which hole was that? I'm trying to remember now. I'm playing it back through.
You're going back to Sunset Valley?
No.
Worst ball.
No, this is. Oh, sorry. It was worst ball.
Worst ball.
Correct. So that would be at Hollowbrook. Hollowbrook. We both drove that green. Yours just rolled off the right. Mine rolled off the back.
Yes.
And I just remember that was after I was kissing the TSI.
Yeah.
But I'm genuinely impressed with that. And what I'm really most excited for in 2021 are we just put the TSI 3 woods in the bag, so I haven't had them out on the course yet. And that was when I look at my shot scope data, I have almost no usage of my 3 wood because I haven't had much confidence in it. And the way Kevin Sprecher fit me to this new TSI 2, I have so much more confidence. I can hit that ball high. I can do more with it.
Yep.
So I think that's gonna make me a more versatile golfer. So yeah, I think that if I had to pick one, that would be it. But all the above.
It's been great equipment upgrades. Best shot scope medal this year. Well, we kind of touched on that. I'll just throw 2 at you. I had the Royce Brook 9 fairways in regulation and those 11 greens in regulation and apple greens.
So again, there's your goal. You can get to your goal.
I can.
You're doing it. For me, again, it was a green in regulation streak as well. I had 3 consecutive green in regulation streak at Mansion Ridge, and I think it's moments like that that really make you feel like a golfer.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like the golfer you want to be when it's not just that one off, like, hey, you played that hole great. But when you have 3 holes in a row where you're on in green regulation and putting for birdie, that just feels good.
Yeah.
It's a big confidence booster.
Absolutely. 2021 must play course. I'm going to put Pinehurst number 2 on there. That'll get my US Open medal for me.
It sure will. And I'm going to put Whistling Straits, which is funny because both courses are courses we were supposed to play in 2020 and both were canceled trips because of COVID.
Did we just cop out and just pick the courses that we think we might be playing this year?
No, I mean,
we were
headed there because we both genuinely wanted to play there.
I think
it just carries over.
Those are 2 great videos I'd love to bring out this year.
No doubt about it.
New equipment this year. I don't know. I maybe new hybrid. We haven't really done hybrids since the old 917s.
Yeah, we
didn't even do the TS.
Nope. Right.
Like the 3 wood, we skipped that. And maybe a new rangefinder coming soon. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
I'm excited because
hybrid's like the missing piece, right?
Right. We had the gains with the TSI driver and the TSI fairway medal.
Just makes sense.
They just have not released the TSI hybrid yet, but we know it's coming. So yeah, I mean, the first thing we're going to be is knocking on Kevin Sprecher's door, get down there and give that a go.
This one kind of slipped in there at the last minute, Frank. Sorry, on your 2021 podcast guest goal.
Ah, okay.
I mean, for me, Justin Thomas, he's my guy. I like his personality. I like how he composes himself. I like watching him on tour. I love seeing him win with his dad. I think Mike Thomas is a great guy. I had a chance to speak with Mike briefly, a couple of times, in fact. I saw him at Ridgewood walking around, as well as he's always at the PGA show in the Titleist booth.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him on email a bunch of times. In fact, I reached out to get Justin on the show before his first PGA Tour win in Malaysia.
I do remember that.
And Mike Thomas wrote me back and said, we'd love to have him on your show, but he's just really busy right now with schedule. Let's try again in a couple of weeks. Sure enough, he went on this tear in the fall season.
Right.
And he became Justin Thomas.
Yeah.
And
the juice. You gave
he was gone. Juice. I gave him the juice.
Via email. Via email.
I don't know. I mean, that's my guest goal. It'd be kind of cool.
That would be really cool.
We were fortunate. We had a lot of PGA Tour guys on the show last year, like Lanto and Morgan Hoffman,
we did.
Brandon Wu.
All very different stories and
yeah.
all very interesting and cool insights for
Big
sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I do like one of my favorite things that we do on the podcast is when we get some of the mental game coaches on, because I feel like you learn so much. It's sometimes it's hard with a podcast to describe physical swing motions, but you can learn so much from the mental game. We've had Dr. Joseph Parent, Zen Golf, on every time. Those are my favorite episodes. In fact, the episode we did this year with him where we talked about getting your kids into the game is something that I put a major pin in, because as soon as it's right now, my kids don't come out of the house too much right now with COVID.
Yep.
But once everything is safe again, I'm going to start bringing my daughter back out on the golf course, and I'm going to do what he said, because his method for playing around with your kid and making sure that nobody comes out of it frustrated, I thought was brilliant.
It was.
If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, go back and listen to that episode. But I want to focus on getting some more mental game coaches on the podcast, because I think that it brings a lot of value to us and to the listeners.
It does. I mean, Dr. Parent, he had that one tip. I mean, we always try to hone in on our own game. And last time I played with my daughter at a par 3 course, I was just worried about hitting greens and sticking pins.
Yeah.
I didn't think to hit the ball where she hits it.
Right.
Just to show her that's where we're going to play it.
And it excites me because I know my focus, big thing was short game. My short game would get better doing that. Having to follow her ball around the course.
Absolutely. Company goals. This is kind of cool. We talked about this. We want to hit 40,000 subs. So congrats.
Yeah.
I think that's
40,
great. That's great on YouTube.
Yep.
And thank you. If any of you who are subscribed, if you're not, please hop over there. You'll love the content. Another thing we wanted to do in 2020 for the company was really start to build this media outlet, Golficity, new headquarters, new personalities, more talent. And we did it. We did that this year despite, we were limited a little bit. We were still able to start that transition to that. And for 2021, for me, I mean, it'd be great to see 100,000 YouTube subscribers. That would be wonderful. That's kind of a really, really stretch goal for us. And the other thing I'd say would be to bring back a lot of the destination and travel stuff is a big goal for 2021.
Just to be traveling again and seeing people. And we had so many great things that required seeing people, collaborations and things like that on the docket. We wanted to do more of these, what we call our range sesh, where we get some of these other golf personalities out on the range and do a fun kind of off the cuff interview. We did one with Garrett Clark, GM Golf. We kicked it off with him back in January, and then things shut down. So I'd love to be able to do a lot more of that. But like you said, we've had some great growth in Golficity. One of our big goals has been to bring more voices in. We always said that Golficity is all about creating the type of content that we want to see and we want to hear, and be giving people outside of golf and non-traditional stuff, giving voice to that. So I'm excited for big things with Ronnie and his podcast. Inside the Leather. I love what Jeremy and Riley are doing with their new style guides, and they're going to be breaking down all different types of style stuff with that show. And there's just so much. They got the boys with Pin High
boys are still going. Their 60th episode they just recorded.
Great stuff, and they had some really great picks this year. If you play fantasy golf, those guys
they've picked some winners. They really have
nailed it a couple times this year. So I'm excited for that, and I agree. Just continuing to work on growing Golficity as a brand and bringing more of different and new and unique types of golf content to the audiences. That's a huge goal.
Yeah.
Huge goal.
And we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, I couldn't do this without you guys.
I mean, if you're still sitting here after an hour and 3 minutes, then you're a loyal fan. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Well, we knew this was going to be a longer episode because it was one we have fun.
I like these long ones every now and then.
You know what? And honestly, if the cameras and the mics are off, you and I would be sitting across the table right now talking about this anyway.
Exactly.
Talking about our goals and what we've done and what we want to do. Because like I said, it's so important to set those little beacons to keep you moving in the right direction. Otherwise, golf is a game that it's very easy to get stagnant. And anybody who feels like their handicap has been the same or they've been shooting the same score for many, many years now knows that. Mm-hmm. So the only way to break free of that is to set those goals, both those intermediary goals and those more lofty goals, the ones that push you out of your comfort zone, because where you're shooting that same score, that is your comfort zone. You need to be able to push yourself out of it. And some of us don't want to because things like swing changes, sometimes people fear going to a lesson because a swing change, they feel like it's going to set them back.
Right.
Because it does take time. It does take time to get through that. So you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone to make it happen. But hold on. Did we lose that there?
She's still recording.
Okay. I think something happened with our video. But anyway, we'll wrap it up by saying, let's hear you guys. Let's hear your goals. Okay. If you've got a goal that you set, or like in the past year, did you attain that goal? Did you not? What did you learn? Do you have goals for 2021? Whatever it may be, drop them in the comments or put them in the Facebook group. Let's get the conversation going because we're excited to hear from you guys and hear a little bit more about it. But I'll tell you what better way to wrap it up than that?
Yeah, right? Seriously. You could do the old Justin Thomas route. Go on your phone, go into Notepad and jot down your goals.
That's it.
If you want to be simple about it, that's how he did it. That's how those guys were doing it. Just put them down somewhere. Write them on paper. Write them anywhere. But definitely put your goals down and try to achieve them. Small goals will lead to big goals. It worked for me. It worked for Frank this year in our game. So get after it and good luck, guys.
Yep. And if you have that and you can look back at it before your round, it'll be a reminder of what you need to do. So, guys, let us know those goals. Thanks as always for another great year. It's been tremendous. And here's to a great
2021. Let's get rid of COVID. Let's get it off.
Cheers to the coffee. Yeah,
it says cheers on your can. So there you go.
Right.
So let's get out of COVID and let's move on back to reality.
That's back to reality. All right. So thanks, guys, as always, for tuning in. You can get to the show notes of this week of everything we talked about by going to golficity.com/episode 356. And we'll see you again next week.